Welcome to A Life in Chapters, a podcast about books, journaling, and building a creative life that feels like home. I'm Alison Wood, and this is where we explore the quiet, meaningful moments that make up a well-written life, one chapter at a time. So today it's episode 8, How I Finally Made Peace with My TBR Pile. So there's a quiet kind of guilt that builds up on your bookshelf or e-reader. It starts with one unread book, then 5, then 25, and before you know it, your TBR pile, your to-be-read list, stops feeling like possibility and starts feeling like pressure. Now that's where I found myself not long ago. I wasn't reading for joy, I was reading out of obligation, or worse, not reading at all, just feeling bad about it. Now, it's something I've wanted to talk about for a while because I know I'm not the only one that feels this. Maybe you felt it too. The pressure to read more, read better, read faster. The subtle shame of unfinished books or piles of books that just keep growing. The feeling that everyone else is reading smarter or deeper or just plain more than you are. Today, I want to talk about how I finally made peace with my TBR pile and how I came back to a slower, more joyful kind of reading, the kind that feels like home again. When reading starts feeling like homework. So let's go back a bit. I've talked in earlier episodes about how I've always been a reader. I grew up surrounded by books. But somewhere in my adult life, reading started to feel heavy, I guess. It wasn't that I didn't want to read, I just felt overwhelmed by what I thought I should be reading. The books I bought weren't always the books I needed. They were the ones I thought I ought to read. The important ones, the literary ones, the ones that win awards or make best of lists. Or alternatively, we feel pressured by what other people are reading. All those people talking about romantasy when all you want to do is curl up with some cozy crime. Or vice versa. Because this is what I mean at heart. There are no wrong or right books, but sometimes we can feel like there are. However, what I had been unwittingly doing was turning reading into a form of homework. Even the books I was excited about would start to weigh on me once they entered the TBR pile. I'd pick one up and think, I need to concentrate for this one. I'll get to it when I have more time. Yeah, right. I should be highlighting. Plot twist, I never highlight or annotate. It's just not me. I might take a few notes or jot down a quote or two, but I never mark up the book. So why was I feeling I had to now? Of course, those circumstances never came about. I never was able to have free time to concentrate or get to it when I had more time. That was never going to happen. And so the pile grew, and with it, this creeping guilt that I wasn't a good enough reader anymore. But here's what I've learned since. You don't have to earn your right to read what you love. The social media guilt spiral. Social media has made this worse in 100 small ways. Bookstagram, BookTok, Goodreads, they can be wonderful, inspiring spaces, but they also create a kind of pressure that's easy to internalize. You start seeing monthly reading wrap-ups with 50 or 20 books, color-coded bookshelves and annotated margins, people who seem to read every major release the moment it's out. How do they even afford that? And if you're sitting there stuck on page 12 of the same book you started 2 weeks ago, it's easy to feel like a failure. It becomes less about what you enjoy and more about keeping up. And it's not just the volume of books, it's the vibe of performance. You start to think, this book isn't smart enough. Everyone else has read this already. I'm still on this? And so you add another title to your list, but you don't start it. Now that's the cycle I was stuck in. I loved books, I wanted to read, but I had forgotten how to read for myself, not for anyone watching. Now, weirdly for me, and in the opposite way to what I've just said, the stuckness I felt about reading actually started to ease when I created a book talk of my own. From the very beginning, I knew that I was only going to talk about books that I loved. After all, if I don't love a book, even if everyone else loves it, I usually just quietly put it down and decide not to finish it. That knowledge that I was only going to share what I love gave me the freedom to just do a quick review. And because I got comments from people about how they love that book too, I quickly felt a sense of community. I also suddenly felt excited about books again. That feeling when you browse a bookshop and read the blurbs on the back, and you literally can't wait to trot up to the counter, get the book in the bag, and rush home to start reading it. That all came back, and with it, the follow through. I didn't just put the book on the shelf, I dived into the one that most excited me first. And then once that was finished, I read the next one and the next one. I had recaptured the magic of all those books I used to pick up from the library as a young girl. A mindset shift from should to could. The breakthrough for me also came from a small change in language. I stopped saying I should read this and started saying I could read this. It sounds simple, but it changed how I saw everything. Suddenly, my TBR wasn't a pile of guilt, it was a pile of possibility. These weren't tasks, they were invitations. Books I might fall in love with, or not. Stories that might be right for me now, or later, or maybe never. And that was okay. Some books I'll read next week, some I'll read 5 years from now. Some will sit on my shelf quietly forever, and they still mattered. Because at some point they brought me joy, hope, curiosity. They reminded me that I am someone who loves stories, even if I haven't read them all yet. Reading in seasons. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that reading, like everything else in life, happens in seasons. Some seasons I devour books, other times I don't read for weeks. And it doesn't mean I'm broken. It might mean I'm tired, overstimulated, grieving, healing, or just in a moment where other things are taking priority. And rather than guilt myself for that, I've started honouring it. Because here's the truth, you're still a reader even when you're not reading. You don't lose that part of yourself because you didn't finish a book last month. Let it be quiet, let it pause, let it flow back in when you're ready. Your reading rhythm is allowed to change. That doesn't make you a bad reader, it makes you a human one. When I started reading for joy again, everything changed. I let go of the lists, the rules, the feeling that it had to count. And instead I asked myself, what do I feel like reading today? And here are just some of the books that brought me back to life. The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Now this is part ghost story, part love story, part quiet grief recovery, and it hit all the right emotional notes. The Thursday Murder Club series by Richard Osman. It made me laugh and think and slow down. I absolutely love these books. How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. A fresh and clever twist on the cozy mystery genre with just the right amount of darkness. Now this one had me at the title alone. Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty. A moving, emotionally layered story about the fragility of life and the ripple effect of small moments. It pulled me in with heart and honesty, and also just wanting to find out what was happening. The premise of that one was so good. Yellowface by Rebecca Kwang. Bold, satirical, and uncomfortable in all the right ways. It made me think deeply, and I devoured this one in about 24 hours. Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz, a masterclass in storytelling inside a story. Clever, classic, and completely addictive. All of these reminded me what it feels like to fall into a story again. Now, what you love might be totally different to that. You might love fantasy or romance or science fiction, so many genres. You might like a bit of everything. I'm a little bit like that. So don't be guided by these. These are just some that I found my way back with. But you should go for whatever calls you. The more it calls you, the better. Now, one of the most helpful things I did during this season was journaling about my reading life, not tracking it, just reflecting on it. I wrote about the kind of books I loved as a child, what I wanted from reading now, comfort, escapism, inspiration, what stories I was craving but didn't feel allowed to read. And the answers surprised me. Journaling gave me permission to change my mind, to let go of books that weren't working, to reread old favourites without guilt, to DNF, that is, did not finish, without apology. And if you'd like to explore this yourself, here are a few prompts you might try. What kind of stories do I need right now? What book did I love recently, and what did it give me? What kind of reader was I when I felt happiest? What's one book I feel pressure to read, and do I actually want to? What would a pressure-free reading life look like for me? Now let these prompts be soft, not structured. Just pick one of them. You don't have to fix anything. You're just listening to yourself, your needs, your rhythm. Now, this is the part I want to say clearly because I need to hear it too. You don't have to catch up. Even if you have a Goodreads challenge number for this year, you don't have to catch up. You're not behind. Your TBR is not a test. Books don't expire, they wait. There is no deadline, no reading police. You are not less of a reader because you haven't read the It book yet. Your shelves are not failures. They're a quiet reflection of your curiosity, a love letter to your future self. And whether you read just 2 books this year or 50, it still counts. You still count as a reader. So take the pressure off. Let yourself read what you want. Let the rest wait. You're allowed to just enjoy stories again. And that's why I chose Enchantment by Catherine May as our very first Patreon book club read. It's non-fiction. We will return to fiction in other months. It's about building a life that feels more meaningful and connected. It's about rediscovering wonder in everyday life. It's about noticing again, softening again, returning to yourself. And I think it's the perfect book for anyone who's been feeling disconnected from their reading life. Inside the book club, we'll be reading slowly over the month of August. There'll be gentle prompts, no pressure to keep up, just shared space to reflect and reconnect. And if that sounds like something your heart needs, you can join us now at alifeinchapters.com/Patreon. There's a place for you there, quietly, gently, at your own pace. So if your TBR is overwhelming you right now, if you've been feeling ashamed, stuck, or uninspired, let this be your permission to stop. You don't have to read faster, you don't have to read better, you don't have to read what anyone else says you should. You just have to remember what reading feels like when it's yours again. Because reading isn't something to conquer, it's something to come home to. Thank you so much for listening to A Life in Chapters. You can always find full show notes, links, and transcripts over at alifeinchapters.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this or any of the episodes, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing the show with a friend. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.